Hi, we're the only people who didn't take tonight off. I'm Greg Gutfeld with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Richard Fowler, Jesse Waters, and Lisa Booth, the Five. All right, Sunday, President Trump retweeted a video of him wrestling Vince McMahon, Vince's head being replaced by the CNN logo. Bet you haven't seen it yet. It was silly, harmless nonsense, yet people lost their minds. Sorry, did I say people? I meant humorless libs who ignore real incitement but take issue with this. Oh, I'm getting the vapors. CNN actually issued a statement about this video saying it incites violence, as if it were a Shakespearean adaptation where the president's being murdered. Fareed Zakaria of CNN called that a masterpiece. Even sadder, CNN's hairless hall monitor, Brian Stelter, asks if Trump violated Twitter's hateful conduct policy in order to get him thrown off. The turgid tattletale said this.
Even if some people think it was just funny, it is being taken very seriously. We're going to keep asking Twitter that question, whether they believe it violates their terms of service. If you read the terms of service, you might think it does.
He's like the student who reminds the teacher that she forgot to assign homework, or the dorm RA who calls security because you're having too much fun and he wasn't invited. Lighten up, Francis. But the worst part in this is how CNN got taken in again. Don't they know that pro wrestling is fake? It's not a real fight. Trump and Vince were play fighting. What is it with CNN? Can't they tell real from unreal? The fight's as phony as the Russian collusion story. They fell for that one. And so they try to get Trump banned from a tool of free expression, one that enhances his transparency. I guess CNN can't stand the competition. Meanwhile, you know what I did when I first saw the tweet? I laughed. I showed it to my brother-in-law, who laughed. He showed it to his wife. She laughed. Then we had breakfast, because that's what normal people do. While the media pretends it's the end of the world knows better.
So true.
I love, Kimberly, that CNN, once again, doesn't realize that this is fake. That this really didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. News flash. Yeah. So here's the best part is CNN gets played. Again, they're like playing right into the president's hands. He can take a joke. He put this out there. It's a meme. It's not real. But, you know, FNN was like, whoa, whoa, inciting violence, alert, 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 right? And a total freak out issued. And then they said, oh, well, this is inciting violence, but they don't do anything when they see the Kathy, Griffin video. They had to be pressed to be able to, fire her, remove her from the job, or their various hosts and anchors who have said things on the other inappropriate, or the stories that they have to retract and fire 3 reporters. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, they're in a downward spiral. Like Tidy Bull Man can't do it quicker than
they are 9-inch nails.
Yeah.
You know what? They issued a statement on this, Lisa. Did they ever release a statement when Reza Aslan ate a human being on his show on CNN? He actually met with cannibals. I think I would have been more upset over that.
Well, you think that CNN would be very aware of fake news because this is what they've been operating in over the past few months. I mean, look, we've seen so much attention, as you pointed out, to this fictitious Russian narrative that is just, there's no evidence of it, but yet they've continued to run it. They've had to fire 3 different people. They've had top contributors basically say that it's a nothing burger. But look, the problem with the media is they continue to overreact and overreach. And now it's gotten to the point that so many Americans just don't trust them anymore. There was that Harvard-Harris poll out not too long ago where 65% of voters believe that there's a significant amount of fake news in the mainstream media now. And so President Trump is basically just fishing, throwing it out there, and bringing them in, getting them to overreact, getting them to fake print news articles in an effort to try to diminish the president and hurt him. And it's only hurting themselves.
Jesse, is the real comedy in the overreaction? Like, it would have been, if nobody did anything, it would have just been another day. But it's the overreaction. It's the shrillness. It's so nice to see the left be the humorless ones. I mean, it's a complete role reversal.
Yeah, they can't take a joke because this time they're the butt of the jokes. Yeah. They're used to being in on the joke when President Obama was around, and they're just not used to getting made fun of, and they can't understand the rest of the country's laughing at them. Trump has this innate gift. he makes his enemies seem deranged.
Yeah.
He made Rosie O'Donnell turn into a laughingstock. Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz were like sweating liars at the end of that campaign, and now Hillary is wandering around in the woods.
He breaks people, remember?
He does. And now Trump has made CNN look faker than professional wrestling. What CNN does is they overreact and they look like fools because it reminds me of the older brother. You know when the older brother comes around, I'll turn this way, it's more appropriate. So Trump's the older brother. And he cocks back like this to the younger brother and goes like that. And then the younger brother freaks out, whines, cries, hits his head on the couch, and then cries to mommy, my older brother hit me. Meanwhile, the older brother didn't even do anything, and he looks like a fool. And that's what's happening with CNN right now. And then, so, CNN has spent years attacking Wall Street traders, CIA interrogators, coal miners, everybody they can get their hands on. And the minute someone criticizes a journalist, it's like World War III is declared. And they're total hypocrites, too, because, you can say whatever you want about Trump, you can behead him, you can assassinate him, but that's an artist expressing himself.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece.
Yes, but then Trump does it, and all of a sudden, everyone's clutching their pearls.
So
all right, Richard. I know you got a lot to defend here, but I'm going to ask you a softball question. The big criticism here is that this is not presidential. This kind of behavior, do you think it's not presidential that he does this?
So here's the thing. I thought this tweet was a joke. I laughed, just like the Covfefe tweet.
Yes.
It was funny, but. But let's make this very clear. He's not Whoopi Goldberg, or he's not Dave Chappelle, or he's not Adam Sandler. He's the president of the United States. And to some extent, maybe I'm the only one at this table that has an ounce of common sense that says the president tweeting stuff out like this is just a tad bit problematic.
Well, I think Trump's funnier than Whoopi Goldberg, actually.
Problematic.
But here, let me respond to that. Is it possible that he is operating under a new set of rules and the media has yet to understand it while they're at the trough of the tweets? They still condemn him.
No, I get that. But here's the thing. I think every president before him, even Republicans who they make me want to vomit, right? Like even some Republicans, Republican presidential candidates who make me want to vomit. But here's one thing that all of them got, all 44 prior to 45, is there is me as the man and there is the office of presidency of the United States. Donald Trump
even Bill Clinton?
I would even argue that Bill Clinton did, because here's what Donald Trump
is trying to smoke a cigar.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm making a point. I am making a point. You're making, well, it was definitely.
But don't talk about.
No, but you were making a generalization, and I have to call you on it.
No, well, here's the thing. And he was impeached for that, as I remember correctly.
Yes.
So, but my point is that minus Bill Clinton, if you want to have that. And you could minus Richard Nixon, if you want to have that too. But every person got it. It is my job to be the president of the United States, and this office and this position and that resolute desk comes before my Twitter. People attack
Harry Truman and threatened to beat up a critic.
President Obama
was critical of his daughter.
But President Obama said it best. He said they attack me all the time, and I will protect their right to attack me.
Greg makes a great point often, and he says, you know what wasn't presidential? When President Obama bowed to the Saudi king. Or what else was unpresidential? When President Obama went golfing after America was beheaded.
Clearly the Trump White House sent
that wasn't very presidential.
Also, James Foley.
Well, honestly, I mean, look at his actions. He's tweeting something, and you're looking at him under a prism that held all these other conventional
that is the presidency of the United States of America.
And people holding the world leader the same way. He broke the mold, dude. He broke the mold, and you're holding him to the same standard as you held all these other guys.
You know what we're talking? Crosstalk, stop. Take a break. Everybody breathe. Kimberly.
Simon says.
Point. You were going to make a point.
Amazing points I have to make here. I mean, they're so amazing, I can't even barely speak them. How about this? How about the crybabies, the little snowflakes that want Twitter to suspend President Trump?
Silencing him.
Account. They want to silence the president, and they complain that he doesn't talk to the press enough. But then he's talking directly to everyone and making it equal opportunity here. But now they want the Twitter. Oh, no. That's got to be suspended. Oh, also, for Christmas, we'd like the 25th Amendment, and we want, to go ahead and impeach the president because he tweets too much, because he's too transparent, because he tells you what's on his mind, because you don't have to sit there and figure it out like an international mystery. Tell you to your face.
Here's my point. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I was going to say, I also think Americans get the hypocrisy here, right? They get the joke in the sense you've got CNN who has long criticized the president and his supporters. He's inciting violence. Remember, throughout the campaign, the general election, as President Trump is inciting violence. But we've continued to see a litany of violence committed by the left that it's been ignored by outlets like CNN. I remember back looking at CNN covering what they call peaceful protests, and you have riots with police cars literally being set on fire and police officers basically lives being put at risk. So I think Americans are in on the hypocrisy. Yeah. They get the joke. And this is how CNN and these outlets have discredited themselves by allowing themselves to be baited in for the president's
I think you're conflating two different things. And I think if you listen to Republicans like Senator Ben Sasse and Senator Lisa Murkowski and Senator Rob Portman, and I can go on the litany of members of Congress and senators who have said this is problematic. And here's what makes this very interesting, is that these are the senators that Donald Trump needs to get his agenda through, which is now stalled and has been stalled for the past 2 years.
So typical politicians, the country's been listening to typical politicians like that for years, and now we're $20 trillion in debt, and you can't win a war anymore.
Murkowski should just probably switch parties.
Exactly.
You know, I think those senators and congressmen are playing a role. They realize we're just going to do this, but actually he's not going to stop doing it, and it's not so bad because he's still getting stuff done. You know, he signed 4 bills last week, and I think last time I checked, ISIS is almost gone. They're now, you know, on the ropes, and he promised that. That's the most important promise he made. He's bad on the small things, great on the big things.
No, I beg to differ on that. He promised infrastructure, $1 trillion infrastructure package, nothing done on it. He promised tax reform, nothing done on it. Repeal and replace, we're still waiting.
He promised to beat Hillary Clinton, and guess what? He did.
Yeah, and he's done nothing else in his agenda.
If he does nothing else except beating Hillary, I think a lot of people will be happy.
That's enough for you, but the rest of us are looking for real achievements.
Think about the big things. He won Supreme Court Justice ISIS. The little things of tweeting. I can take the tweeting.
Deregulation.
The United States Supreme Court agreed with the president and his executive authority that he had the constitutional right to be able to put the trial event to make America safe and national security.
That took 7 months.
He's doing all this. The immigration numbers are far better than they've ever been in terms of people trying to come over into this country. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. He's eradicating MS-13. The job numbers are way better. The 401k employment numbers are better, but nobody wants to talk about this. And also manufacturing on the rise in America. No longer are we just importing, but we're actually making goods here and making a buck or two.
All right, we gotta go.
The Trump talking points are out today, man.
No. You don't have to have talking points. Those are results. Okay, we got to move on. Coming up, we'll continue our analysis of President Trump's battle with the media, and we'll tell you who's winning. Stay with us.
Welcome back. President Trump's critics want him to stay off Twitter, but Mr. Trump says that's not happening anytime soon. With the president tweeting on Saturday, quote, "My use of social media is not presidential. It's modern day presidential." And take a listen to what the president said over the weekend.
The fake media is trying to silence us, but we will not let them, because the people know the truth. The fake media tried to stop us from going to the White House, but I'm president and they're not.
Greg?
That he is redefining discourse, and it has been very hard for a lot of people, including myself, during the campaign, to keep up or understand it.
You came around.
Yeah, but it took me a while.
It did.
But I don't think it's a problem when you think about how much of the culture has been redefined by the left over the last 4 decades. I mean, we have 72 pronouns, you know, we have different bathrooms and campus speech. Basically, language in general has been redefined by liberals. So it's about time that maybe somebody like this redefined political discourse. But we also have to admit, the media and Donald Trump love each other. This is a codependent relationship. They're like the couple who screams in public at Walmart, but you know they scream in the bedroom too. Ooh. Because the passion is there. They love each other. Like, he would be bored without them, and they would be bored without him, and they can't turn back.
A little bit of like True Romance with like Christian Slater.
Yes.
A little bit of killing too. Exactly. If you're into that kind
they
of
never
thing.
last very long.
Yeah, just ask Greg.
Sounds like there's some speaking from experience there. I don't know.
Exactly.
I had some time.
Truth serum in the Unicorn Cup. So what do you make of this? The president really has redefined, discourse. And by the way, he did this during the campaign as a candidate Trump in terms of use of social media. And he's got a powerful weapon round through the media, who, by the way, is held in such low regard by the American people. Take a look at all the polls. And the man's got a right to be irritated. The Harvard study showed 93% of CNN's coverage, like MSNBC, negative about the president.
Well, look, I think the biggest knock against the president using Twitter is the concept that he is preventing the media from covering things that he is doing. I would make the argument that they're not going to cover positive things that the president is doing anyways. I mean, look at what I mentioned before, 353 minutes the broadcast network spent on this Russia story, which there has been no evidence of collusion. That's 20 times more than on the healthcare bill, 100 times more on infrastructure, 450 times more than tax reform. The second is climate change of the time that they've spent on this. Only 5 minutes on jobs in the economy, which is the number one issue to Americans. So I don't think that they're going to be covering anything positive that he's doing anyway. So this is an opportunity for him and a way for him to bypass the media and actually get some of this messaging out.
Yeah, Jesse, you agree? I mean, they want to talk about things that are consistent with their political, ideology and their social agenda and environmental agenda.
Yeah, Lisa made a great point. There's a guy, I think Charlie Gard is a 10-month-old baby. He's in Great Britain right now. He's on life support, and President Trump tweeted today, we'd like to help this young baby because right now courts are possibly saying we're going to have to pull the plug and it's a life or death situation. The Pope even weighed in supporting President Trump, and that's being buried, and everybody wants to talk about the wrestling video. So there is some of that too, but in terms of the tweeting, I think Trump is a phenomenon. He's a force of nature. You can't control him. He's just like a whirling dervish. He trusts his instincts. His instincts got him to the White House, and I think he's not going to go back on those instincts anymore. And I think when he veers off into these kind of fights with people, I feel like he believes that's useful. He doesn't do anything that he doesn't think is useful. And I think right now, currently, he thinks stuffing CNN in a locker is useful to his long-term agenda and to the American people, because when you browbeat CNN, when you delegitimize them, or when you help CNN delegitimize themselves, they're weaker. People trust them less, and they're not able to lie about him and his agenda on a daily basis. So I think the Democrats have really not been in power since November because they lost pretty much everything. And now the media is really taken on the role of the true opponent. So he believes fighting the media serves his best interests, and so far I believe it's working.
He also likes to distract him, Richard, to say, okay, well, when he did the Mika tweet and then the wrestling people are talking about CNN, they were talking about Mika and Joe, instead of talking about, the Republicans didn't have the votes to get health care done before 4th of July, or the issues and concerns that were going on, with North Korea. He was very much aware of those things being in play and thought, okay, well, here you go.
I get all of that. I just have two things on this.
Strategy.
Right. I get the strategy. I get that, I guess. But here's a larger point. So I remember...
Larger than mine? Doubtful.
Yes.
Impossible.
2 times the size.
Prove it.
Easy.
Once you go black.
Oh, man.
Careful.
Anyway.
Help us, Jesus.
Here's the larger point. Ever since I've grown up, I've always looked up to the President of the United States. Now, the question I always have is, would I want my children, I don't have any now, but would I want my children to model Donald Trump, where he makes fun of women, which he did to Mika, everybody could admit that.
That wasn't sexist.
I never said it was
Equal
sexist.
opportunity offender.
I think he would
you
have
should
said it
praise
about
him for
Joe.
that. You should say, I like the fact that he
No, I don't like the
doesn't
fact.
see a gender.
I think that it's the job of the president to be above the fray on a lot.
You want your son to grow up to be like Jimmy Carter?
Not to mention, Jimmy Carter is a humanitarian and a legend for that matter.
Terrible president.
The answer is yes.
But, and he's fighting for world peace right now. He'll probably fight the world
How's
peace.
that working out?
Fight a little harder.
And he's a cancer survivor, so let's stop making fun of the former president, Jimmy Carter.
No, we won't.
And so, but the larger point is this. Every president who's come in, whether Democrat or Republican, George Bush is the best example of this, is when they come in, they win with their base and usually try to expand their base and try to talk to all Americans. What we've seen from this president, and the polls pointed out, is he has not expanded his base at all. He's stick to the, you voted for me.
He doesn't need to expand it. He won 3 blue states.
Yeah, but he's got to expand his base.
He expanded it during the election. He expanded it right into Hillary's territory.
100% of his time.
Sleeping in the Scooby van.
He spends 100% of his time talking to the 45% of Americans that voted for him, and that's problematic, whether you like it or not, because he represents all Americans, whether they're Democrats or Republican. And this language and the overuse of Twitter and this sort of acting like a 10-year-old on a playground is wrong, and it's not presidential.
If it's hurting him, then why do all the Democrats tell him to stop?
All those tweets, if a ninth grader in high school had tweeted what he tweeted about Mika Brzezinski, they would have gotten suspended for cyberbullying.
I have to disagree with that.
Read the code of conduct.
He is no different than anybody else when he's on Twitter and the media complaining about this. It's like a drunk who blames his problems on booze. They scream about the tweets, but you guzzle them down anyway. By the way, I'm noticing a change in how people address Trump. Now they're going after his state of mind. It used to be he was evil, then he was corrupt, then he was incompetent. Now they're saying he's crazy. What's going to happen to them when all of a sudden the media wakes up and sees that he did some really good things? Like when ISIS is gone, are you going to still call him crazy? Are you going to still be mad about his tweets?
Yeah. You made a great point on Friday night when you said you're fine with it because ISIS is getting incinerated, basically. Real quick.
Well, if the media ignored it, he probably would stop doing it too. So
yes, it's like the drinking
people
problem.
that elected him, you elected him. You want him. This is who he is. He's not going to radically change his personality or anything really about him. I'm just honestly, don't hold your breath.
I'm not,
because he doesn't get tired of winning. A Washington Post writer just back from Syria says President Trump's strategy to defeat ISIS, Greg, is working.
I said so.
You're going to hear from him next.
A Washington Post columnist recently traveled to Syria and had some good news for President Trump to report.
As I traveled across Syria, meeting with Syrian fighters who were trying to take down the regime of Bashar al-Assad, every time the name President Trump was mentioned, there were cheers from the audience. The big attacks that have taken place around Raqqa, one in particular, a surprise landing by helicopter, I was told by the top U.S. commanders would not have taken place hadn't been for President Trump's decision to delegate military authorities down to the level of command.
And we are hearing breaking news reports tonight that South Korea is saying that the North fired a ballistic missile into the waters east of the Korean Peninsula, and we are going to keep a close watch on that and report any new developments. So, Gutfeld,
yes.
Muslim freedom fighters have good things to say about President Trump. Why do you think we're only hearing about this on the 5?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But you know what? You don't have to go that far to hear this reaction. The lesson of 2016 for a New Yorker, somebody like me, is that I never met a cab driver who didn't like Trump, no matter the race. No matter the race. Could have been from Syria, could have been from Iraq, could have been Jamaican, could have been Indian, Iranian. But there was an understanding of what he was, which was real and understandable. But the other point is he made the warriors in charge of the war and not bureaucrats, because war is about killing. Mm-hmm. But like it or not, it's about killing efficiently and quickly. The longer something lasts, the worse it is. He delegated it to the right people who understood killing.
React to what Greg just said. So it seems like, and this has been a thing going on since the campaign, where the experts say one thing about Trump, the politicians and the institutions say this about Trump, but the people on the ground, either the voters or the people in the factories or even the people in the battlefield, say something completely different.
But actually, if you remember back to the election, that was one of the big knocks against Trump. It was the fact that he wouldn't be able to delegate. He wouldn't listen to his commanders in chief. But it's the opposite of what he is doing. He is actually delegating to his commanders in chief, which has allowed us to be more effective on the ground. Secretary Mattis has said that we're no longer just doing a policy of attrition and moving around ISIS. We're annihilating them. And that's the goal, so that they can't go back elsewhere and infiltrate places like America or North Africa or wherever. So, I think that is one of the biggest significant differences, because that was something that President Obama was heavily criticized for, was not listening to his commander. Secretary Mattis even criticized the president back in the day for taking options off the table and not listening to commanders. So I think this is actually a place where President Trump has certainly proved his critics wrong.
Not only did he not listen to the commanders on the ground, he tried to micromanage them, Richard. Would you admit now that maybe delegating a little bit to the commanders on the ground kind of unleashed the U.S. military? Now they've got these bad guys surrounded in Raqqa. It looks like that capital may fall.
Well,
what do you have to say, Richard?
Are you going to make a larger point?
No, I was actually going to say I agree with Trump's strategy in Syria.
Excellent.
But
that's enough. Okay, Kimberly.
Don't move too fast.
Okay, I don't.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we have other problems, right? We have a G20 meeting where Tillerson has said they're going to yield to Putin to figure out what to do with Bashar al-Assad. I think that's problematic because we already know that al-Assad and Putin are best buds, and so I don't want the Russians having anything to do with Assad. Number two, I think we need to figure out not only how we deal with ISIS, but how also we deal with the Syrian civil war. And those things are completely two different things. And if you view them together, that's where you create problems. And the third thing is when you arm rebels, every time we've armed rebels in the Middle East, every single time, they've used those weapons against us a couple years later. Yeah. So I'm very, very, very leery about this ideal of arming rebels when our blood and treasure will be spilt in the Middle East in about 5 years with the weapons that we gave them.
That is a good point.
The reason why Russia has such a significant role in Syria is because President Obama leaned on them and allowed them to have the role after drawing a red line, failing to follow through. He deferred to Russia and allowed Russia to have a bigger presence in the Middle East.
That's actually not true. Putin has always been in with al-Assad, especially after Turkey fell and they were debating about
But they increased their presence.
But the weapons that al-Assad are using are Russian weapons. They've been Russian weapons for decades.
KJ,
I know.
Why don't you analyze the current situation and speak to what Richard just said.
So here's the deal. So first of all, I just want to say to David Ignatius, the Washington Post, I thought that was excellent reporting. He actually was courageous and, by the way, told the truth and a story that was favorable and honest and accurate about what's going on over there. And it's true that Raqqa is surrounded now. So that's something that's very important because that's going to be a huge win to be able to take that back. By the way, President Trump should be cheered by the Kurdish forces and the Free Syrian Army because guess what? He's actually honoring his word. President Obama did turn his back on them, didn't want to arm them because he was afraid that the Iranian mullahs would not sign his precious nuclear agreement, okay? So we turned our back, and anybody who operates in the intelligence community or special operators will tell you how shameful that was, that they literally saw the top generals like slaughtered because they weren't given the air cover. Now they've got the weapons, they've got the air cover in combination with the rules of engagement.
The Democrats love to show their disgust for President Trump, but when it comes to everything else, well, they're having some trouble.
Democrats don't have any sign of a competent, effective leader who can marry the cultural left and the economic left going into 2020. I think Donald Trump stands a pretty good chance of being re-elected.
The party's defense of minorities and celebration of diversity are genuine and genuinely praiseworthy. But they have created great distance between itself and a broad swath of middle America. The Democrats need to talk about America's national identity in a way that stresses the common elements that bind, not the particular ones that divide.
So, Kimberly, what you just heard is sort of this conversation. Is it this leftward shift in social and cultural views, or Minority Leader Senator Chuck Schumer said it's the economy? What's driving this distance with middle class voters in Middle America?
I think this has been going on for a while now, and it certainly started during the campaign, and that's why President Trump was able to connect with middle class and with working men and women, that they felt like this party, the Democrats, they're taking us for granted. They're not even thinking and connecting with the things that really matter to us about the jobs. They're just saying, we got you in the bag, so we don't have to do anything to try to make your life better, to listen to your concerns, to actually hear how you're suffering. But President Trump, when he was campaigning, went all over the country and went and met with the coal workers and met with people across this country to talk to them and actually listen, which is so interesting for a politician to be able to do, so unique. And that's why he was able to make this connection, and that's why they still support him. And when you look at the polls, like 96% of the people that originally voted for him would vote again. And it's because of that voting bloc that the Democrats and the liberals squandered and disrespected.
Richard, you said before that Democrats should just sit back and watch the Republican Party implode, but now the Democratic Party has lost 4 special elections. They saw their worst fundraising record of May since 2003. Do you still think that's what they should do?
Well, I think it's hard to judge what a party should do based on special elections. If you remember in 2008 or 2009 rather, when Barack Obama won, Democrats won all the special elections, and we ended up losing. We had a huge defeat in the midterm elections. So, there's no question that the Republicans are going to lose seats in this upcoming midterm elections. What Democrats have got to do now, and what I hope my party will do, is come up with a concrete message on what is affecting people and how we can create a plan to fix it. I think the raw materials are there. I think there's a lot of people that are talking about the right things, but now how do we bring it all together in some sort of, like, if you to take Newt Gingrich's phrase, a contract with America on what we need to get done. And I think what's going to be helpful for Democrats moving into the next couple of days is the fact that, one, the president's agenda is stalled in the Senate. I think this healthcare fight is sort of it shows the problem, right? Because what conservatives are having is a debate between, do we help people or ideology? If you think about Ted Cruz versus where Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins is. So I think for Democrats now, we've got to say, see, this is their problem, and here's how we want to help people.
I think you need some leadership, someone to say what you're doing, because they know they can't ignore these voters in this voting bloc.
Greg, what do you think about what Richard just said?
I thought what he said made a lot of sense for once. I might say it's problematic, but that's his word. You got to figure out what you're for, not what you're against. You just can't be anti-Trump the whole time.
Russian collusion.
The Democratic Party has a tumor, and it's identity politics, and they got to remove it. You got to find a leader who is positive, not angry, and isn't going to traffic in the balkanizing conflict of identity politics. America is always about being the melting pot. Identity politics is about separating out the ingredients of the recipe. You don't have the meal anymore. So somebody has to come in and unite the party as an American party, not a competing set of factions who are angry. They need to perhaps look beyond politics to find someone who has energy and vision that is, not necessarily a governor or a senator. I would think something like Kathy Griffin or Johnny Depp. But that's for you to say.
Oh, my God.
Jesse, what do you make of this tumor, as Greg puts it?
I think they should nominate Griffin and Depp. I think that's a nice ticket for Trump to run against. I think politics is 50% sales and 50% policy. And right now, the Democrats have neither. On the policy side, it's open borders, high taxes, socialized medicine. On the sales side, it's rioting in Russia. I think what the woman on MSNBC said was right. I can't believe I'm actually saying that, but she was right. They need a talented, high-energy, passionate politician, like Greg said, that can kind of straddle the appeal to hardworking families in middle America, but also relate to that underdog aspect of people on the coasts. Barack Obama was able to do that. He was able to kind of appeal because he seemed reasonable, and he seemed fresh, and he seemed young, and he seemed like he could attract independents, but then, he could also rally the base up on the coast. And right now, the Democrats have just appointed a congresswoman from Illinois to be the outreach director for the Heartland.
Wow.
Now, when you treat America like a special interest group, you're in trouble.
Well, they definitely don't need anyone low energy.
And they're hiring someone to get them to be able to learn how to talk to the middle class and talk to working class men and women. Wow, disconnect.
I know, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Scary.
All right. Well, are you proud of your country this 4th of July? Some very mixed responses from Americans in a new Fox poll coming up next.
Fox News is out with a brand new poll that says just over half of registered voters are proud of the United States right now. When you look a little bit deeper, there's clearly some politics at play. 64% of Republicans say they're proud compared to 39% of Democrats. I, for one, think that Republican number is low. But Kimberly, what's your take?
I think the Republicans actually are doing quite well and are happy. Yeah, I understand. But I'm saying in terms of what's going on in the party right now, the party in crisis is the Democrats. The Republicans, yes, there's some people that are upset a little bit about certain things, maybe tone or whatever, or use of Twitter, etc. But right now, in terms of winning with the American people, in terms of putting forward agenda, in terms of having something that they actually stand for and that they believe in, and having policies and principles and leadership and a bench that's very good that they can go through, the Republicans are the ones that are winning in every step right now. And your party is like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, radical left. imploding, being pushed all the way to the left, alienating all the rest of the country with the Pocahontas and, Bernie Sanders. I mean, it's not good.
So, Jesse.
Yes.
I'll pose the same question.
Yes.
You'll get the same answer.
64%, which it should be like 80 or 90% of Republicans are proud of their country, but that's only 64%. That's a relatively low number after the big win you guys had in November.
I mean, maybe the Republican Party's changing. I hate to bash Democrats on the eve of Independence Day, but they deserve it. I can't believe that little amount of Democrats are proud of their country. I think it's a fundamental issue that Democrats believe that the country is fundamentally flawed and they need to use government in order to fix it, whereas Republicans believe the country is fundamentally noble and want to limit government to restore the country to the founding principles.
That's a twisted ideology, Lisa.
That's constitutional.
Lisa?
The Democratic Party is always apologizing for the strength of America. And I think the reason Democrats view the country this way is because they always perceive themselves as a victim. It's always sexism, racism, xenophobia, or whatever. They're always making excuses. They always see themselves as the victims, where I think Republicans see opportunity.
And afraid to embrace patriotism. The Democrats started bashing the country back in Vietnam.
I go back to what I said before. I think the Dems are always going to have a problem with patriotism, but it's not the party's fault. It's a subset of academic leftists that have believed that America as a country is damned. You cannot be proud of a history of sinners, whether it's slavery, sexism, whatever it is. The academic left will always say that we are at fault, we are eternally damned, and there's nothing you can do about it. So until you expunge this pernicious belief, you will always have this problem, and it will never go away.
That's what I was thinking.
They're blaming the U.S. for everything. That's the problem.
I don't think neither of these things are true, but one more thing is up next, and that's true. We'll be back.
That's true.
Time for one more thing, Kimberly.
Hi, thank you so much. I'll go now. So I have an all-star lineup, almost exceeding the amazing sensationalism of the five tonight. So I'm in for my good friend Sean Hannity, 10 p.m. in a matter of minutes, with Mike Huckabee, Dinesh D'Souza, DeRoy Murdoch, Dr. Gina Loudon, Dr. Mark Siegel, Greg Jarrett, Kristen Tate, and Lionel. I think you guys are going to like it. Fantastic show.
Excellent work. Well, it is time for this. Greg Zebra News. Now, before we roll the tape, I want to tell you where I got this from. I was watching CNN, and they were doing a segment on this rare new zebra that's stateside. So let's roll this tape. I was checking it out. Yep. And then I realized CNN had been taken again. CNN had, this is more fake news from CNN. This is not a real zebra. This is just like the wrestling video and the Russian collusion story. That was a poodle. I kid the CNNers.
Gosh, I hope that washed
Brian Stelter rides that to work.
Oh my God.
Yes, he does. He does. All right, Jesse.
All right, in honor of July 4th tomorrow, Jesse's tanning tips. Why don't I get it? I never get an animation like that.
No, you don't.
Anyway, all right, so I don't want anybody to get sunburned. It's not a good look. So I learned something. The suntan spray, the spray?
Yeah.
It's not just good enough to just spray yourself. You have to rub it in after you spray it.
In water's
A doctor told me that, and that's why you knuckleheads are out there getting sunburned. You're not rubbing in the spray, so when you're out there on the beach tomorrow, spray and rub it in. You're welcome.
Do it for you.
Exactly.
That's good stuff there, Lisa.
Speaking of tanning, I'm sure you've seen the photo of Governor Chris Christie and his family and friends at the Island Beach State Park. It looks pretty empty. The reason why is it was shut down due to a government shutdown. Chris Christie is clearly getting a lot of heat for this, pun intended.
He's looking up at the helicopter.
But the funniest thing about this is Chris Christie originally said he did not get any sun over the weekend, and his spokesperson corrected it and said that the reason he did not get any sun was because he was wearing a hat. I think that's
he was
funny.
rubbing in his suntan spray.
No, because he was wearing a hat. He's covered up.
That's in front of his house, correct? We should point that out.
Yes, but also Chris Christie, in response to people being critical of this, he said, well, run for governor, and that's what you get.
If you look really closely, he's reading Gutfeld's book.
No, that was Brad Thor's book.
Oh, was it?
Brad Thor.
Out about it. It was pretty hilarious.
Oh, it's my turn. Finally, yeah. So we're talking about, this is a heartfelt story. My mother's a single mother, so when I saw this, I thought this was perfect. This is a single mother who emailed her professor to apologize for missing class because she couldn't find childcare. And here's what her professor said. Her professor said, why don't you just bring the kid to class with you? In the future, if you're having trouble finding something to watch Corbin, feel free to bring her with you to class. Now, this is from the Tennessee University, and they're studying therapeutic recreation for children. So Corbin gets to come to class, and there's so many working mothers out there this 4th of July.
We gotta go. We gotta move on.
Have
a happy 4th of July. I'm not even drinking. Tune in tomorrow for our big Independence Day special. Hannity's up next. Kimberly is going to be in for Sean.